Good morning and happy Tuesday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. I am here as always to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS slate for both DraftKings and FanDuel. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. That helps us get this in front of more viewers so we can provide more free content to you. Also, if you're not already a member at Occupy Fantasy, please check the links in the description below. You get access to the NBA model you see here, as well as models for other sports. We have a single and multi lineup builder, also a private Discord server full of DFS pros to help you improve your game. There is a 30-minute window leading up to each lock where you can ask lineup specific questions to one of our pros. So definitely jump in, sign in. Great group of guys and gals over there. And yeah, nice 7-game slate tonight, so let's get into it. I'm mostly going to lead on the model here on the screen so you guys can kind of see what we're dealing with the slate overall, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to kind of go game by game, hopefully rather quickly, and I'm going to lean on the order of the official NBA injury report. So first game on the slate we have at 7 o'clock. We have the Detroit Pistons at the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers are 12.5-point favorites at home. So definitely a wide total here, and we are looking at a 227.5-point game total. So Embiid's still questionable against the Pistons in such a soft matchup. I mean, I feel like they could rest him if they wanted to, but given the very wide spread here, I do have a hunch that he's going to play. Other than that, PJ Tucker's probable. No real injury news for the 76ers. So let me just jump to Philly real quick. Yeah, so it looks like Embiid's already drawing some ownership in projections. I think most people think he's going to be good to go here. They could be cautious. Again, it is a soft matchup, but if Embiid's in, I do like him. Harden and Maxey are both fine plays as secondary options. Tobias Harris looks okay as well. But none of these guys are really going to be priorities with this team being healthy and there being some blowout risk here. If Embiid is out, however, then Harden and Maxey would look like excellent guard options. And then Montrezl Harrell has had a lot of good games lately with Embiid out of the lineup. He'd be one of the better value centers on the slate. He's not really value anymore over on FanDuel where he's 5,900, but you could just see in his game logs here, not even playing 30 minutes a night and consistently hitting value around that 5K price tag. So if Embiid's out, you could go to Harrell. He did start last game for the first time in a long time, so that was good to see. Also would like Harris more with Embiid out, but if Embiid's in, it's going to be really tough to prioritize anything from Philadelphia. Then we could take a look at Detroit. Looks like Marvin Bagley's out. Bojan Bogdanovic is out. Jalen Duren is out. Who else? Yeah, that's all that's really significant. I mean, the big news here, we have both Bagley and Duren out, which means Isaiah Stewart's going to be an excellent option on both sites. You see him at near 50% on both sites. And I mean, it's really tough to get away from them. They really don't have any depth in that front court with Bagley and Duren both sidelined. So yeah, it's going to be tough to get away from Isaiah Stewart. I don't know that I would want to. I like him a lot here, especially on FanDuel where you're getting that power forward eligibility. He looks good over on DK as well. Let's see here. Yeah, he's power forward eligible there as well, so you don't even have to use up that center spot. You could get Isaiah Stewart. I mean, the one concern here, I guess, would be maybe Embiid can get him into foul trouble if Embiid is in. This is actually a better matchup, obviously, if Embiid's out for the Pistons. But yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get away from Stewart, especially in single entry or cash game type formats. So really like Isaiah Stewart here again. He's just really the only front court piece that's healthy for the Pistons right now. This should also create more minutes and usage for someone like Sadiq Bey, who I do think looks interesting. Killian Hayes is back from his suspension. He has been for a few games, so he's good. But yeah, it's a lot of scoring dependent guards on this team. He's not popping in the model right now, but Hamidou Diallo has actually been getting more run lately. He's something to keep an eye on. If he's starting, he's an okay piece of value. Not something I'd ever be forcing, but someone you could consider. But look at the pricing discrepancies here. I mean, we got Killian Hayes 5,700 on DK, love it. 7,100 on FanDuel, really do not like it at all. And then, oh yeah, Diallo is here. I just missed him. He's cheap on both sides, drawing ownership. Looks really good. So the big play here is definitely Isaiah Stewart. Then obviously we have to keep an eye on the Embiid news for Philadelphia. If Embiid's in, I'm really not loving any 76er, but if he's out, I think you could go to most of the other starters and Montrezl Harrell, regardless of whether or not he starts. But really the one core play from this game is Isaiah Stewart. Moving into the next game on the slate, we have the Charlotte Hornets at the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are 8-point favorites at home. Let's see here. So no real injuries for Toronto, which is rare to see. They've been kind of banged up most of the season, but whenever this team is healthy, it's one of these situations where it's kind of tough to pluck who's going to be the best player on a given slate. Siakam, really excellent season so far for him. This is a great matchup. I do like him on both sides. Definitely better on FanDuel where he's down below 10K now. More easy to get him into your lineups and still fit other pay up options. Van Fleet looks fine on both sides, kind of priced where he should be. Can say the same about OG and Barnes. Then we take a look at Gary Trent here. I like him better on DK at 6,100. He is back in Nick Nurse's favor after being in his doghouse most of the first half of the season, which is good to see. I do like Gary Trent here on DK. Don't mind him at all. Charlotte, really soft matchup. But then, yeah, over on the Charlotte side, we're looking at Kelly Oubre's out and Gordon Hayward is doubtful. So that opens up a lot of minutes and usage on the wings. Jalen McDaniels has been excellent with those guys out, but his price is up, especially on FanDuel now. I like him more on DK at just 5,300. PJ Washington reasonably priced on both sites. And then, yeah, I mean, we're getting more usage for guys like Rozier and Ball. Obviously, Rozier's easier to afford. Like him a lot at 6,900 on DK. LaMelo Ball I like better on FanDuel at 9,800, but there's no real priority for me from this game. It is a tough matchup against Toronto. I do think this game's competitive enough that you don't really have to worry about blowout risk, but at the same time, again, it's just tough to really want to prioritize these wings with Oubre and Hayward out because they're priced up now. I do like Rozier. I think he's a little bit too cheap on both sides, and then obviously LaMelo Ball has a very high ceiling, so decent spot for Charlotte. And then again on Toronto, just to recap, good team, just really tough to know who to pluck on a given night because there are so many good players in that starting lineup. I really do favor Siakam and then Gary Trent on DK, but not necessarily anything I'm really forcing. Next game on the slate, we have the Heat hosting the Thunder. The Heat are only 2.5 point favorites at home, so that should be a bit telling. Obviously, they got some guys on the injury report here pulling things up. We got Bam questionable. Haslam and Hero both questionable. Lowry is out. Caleb Martin is out. Duncan Robinson is out. Gabe Vincent is probable. And Jovic is still out. So, first and foremost, Butler looks solid on both sides. I do like Bam. He is questionable. If he is out and Dedmon is in, I do think we could look to Dwayne Dedmon as a value center. As things stand, I'm fine getting to Bam. Hero questionable. This is another situation where this is a good team in a soft matchup, so maybe they can rest guys and be a bit more conservative with minutes than they would normally be. With Lowry out, I really like Oladipo. He's looks excellent over his past few starts. He really took over the game against Phoenix over the weekend. Looked good last time out as well. So I do like Oladipo on both sides. 5,300 on DK is too cheap. And then 5,700 on FanDuel really isn't bad either. But let's see here. Yeah, so I would probably click Oladipo. I mean, if Gabe Vincent is in and starts for Lowry, he's going to look good as well, but we're definitely getting much higher fantasy point per minute rates out of Oladipo. So, yeah, I mean, if Bam and Hero are both out, I would say Butler is a priority. I think as things stand, Oladipo's a priority, even if those guys are all in. Again, Kyle Lowry is going to be out of this one. Just another situation where we really have to keep an eye on the news. It looks like Bam's drawing a lot of ownership over on FanDuel as things stand. Again, he's listed as questionable. If he's in, I think he's great over there. 8,700 does feel a bit too cheap. 9,100 on DK, certainly reasonable, but you're getting the power forward eligibility on FanDuel, so he's easier to get to over there. Guys like Max Strus are fine. Duncan Robinson, really boomer bust, not someone I'm ever really playing. But yeah, Caleb Martin, did I say he was out? Yeah, he's out as well. So there are going to be a lot of minutes and usage to go around here. Keep an eye on the starting lineup. Keep an eye on this news. This is a 7:30 game, so hopefully we have that news prior to lock, but definitely a fluid situation to keep an eye on. On the other side of the ball, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's pulling up OKC. Poku and Robinson Earl are still out on that front court. Otherwise, no major news. Really nothing you have to force here. Very tough matchup with Miami, even if they're banged up. I obviously like SGA. Giddy's fine, just a little scoring dependent. But all these guys are kind of priced where they should be now. Really nothing standing out to me on OKC. I think they're fine. I think this would be a better situation if some of these Miami guys get ruled out. And what Vegas is telling us right now at that 2.5 point spread is some of them probably will. So I do like SGA here, especially if he's going to stay low owned. Same with Giddy. Really nothing else I'd be forcing. I mean, we've seen more minutes out of guys like Trey Mann, Kenrich Williams, but they're all difficult to trust. Mike Muscala did get the start the other day. If he starts at center again, he is a viable center value option. Some risk, but he hit value pretty easily, only playing around 20 minutes or so. So I do like Muscala, but only if he starts. But definitely keep an eye on that Miami situation. There's a lot of news still to break there. Next game on the slate, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Utah Jazz. The Cavs are 3-point favorites on the road. Looking at Cleveland's injury report here, Dean Wade, Dylan Windler out, Rubio still out. So really no major injury news on Cleveland. They're pretty healthy. Donovan Mitchell's just too cheap on FanDuel at 8,900. I like him over there. Garland and Mobley feel a little bit too cheap on DK. You're getting Mobley at 6,300, Garland at 7,700, which certainly feels too cheap. So there is stuff to like in the starting lineup. I mean, Levert's been really good the past few games, but there's been guys out for that to kind of occur. So I probably wouldn't use Levert at all tonight, but I do like Mitchell and Garland. I do like Allen and Mobley, but I really wouldn't call any of them priority plays here. Let's see, over on the Utah side of things, Utah's going to be paced down. This is a difficult matchup, but we're getting a really good piece of value here, in my opinion, in Walker Kessler. Kelly Olynyk's out. So I've been playing Kessler even with Olynyk in. It works some nights, it doesn't on others. But with Olynyk out of the lineup, he's one of my favorite value centers on the slate. I imagine this ownership comes up. We're seeing him sub 10% on both sites right now. Obviously not a great matchup, but he's kind of immune to game script. 4,700 on DK is too cheap. You get the two center spots over there. There is some opportunity cost using him over on FanDuel at 5,500. But again, with Kelly O out, I think he's going to see increased opportunity in both minutes usage, potential rebounds as well. Lauri Markkanen's been excellent, much better priced on FanDuel. Wow, what a discrepancy. 9,700 on DK feels too expensive. I could see getting there at low ownership as like a pay up to be contrarian type spot, but not someone I'm really prioritizing. FanDuel though, 8,200. Really good play at either small forward or power forward, but the prize here for me is Walker Kessler. I like him a lot on both sites. But yeah, tough game, kind of slow paced. Did I read off the total? 227 though. So for Cleveland, that's actually pretty high. So I don't mind getting to some of those Cavs, especially Mitchell over on FanDuel. And then yeah, I would click. I like that we get Stewart over here on FanDuel at power forward. He's power forward on DK as well. So you could plug him in with Walker Kessler and feel pretty good about it. And you get around 7K to pay for the rest of your lineup. So I think that's a good starting point tonight. Just clicking through some things here. I know I already selected Oladipo as well. I would like him to start for the Heat, so keep an eye on that. I imagine he will with Kyle Lowry out of the lineup, but that's certainly not a guarantee. So we can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the Orlando Magic at the Portland Trailblazers. These are now the 10 o'clock games. The Trailblazers 7.5-point favorites at home. Nasir Little's out. Nurkic is probable. Justice Winslow's still out. So no major news here. I mean, with Winslow out, we have been seeing increased minutes for Josh Hart, just slight bump. Gary Payton has been back lately, so that's kind of cutting into the extra, I don't know, boost we might see with Winslow out of the rotation because he's out, but Payton's in. So really, it's kind of a moot point. I do like Dame on both sides. 9,100 on FanDuel feels way too cheap. Nurk, 6,100 on TK feels too cheap. It's really a tale of two sites here. I like Nurkic a lot more on DK. I like Lillard a lot more on FanDuel. I think you can play Josh Hart on either site. Jeremy Grant's fine on either site. Anthony Simons, it's been a long time since we've seen a ceiling game out of him. But this is a soft matchup against Orlando. I think maybe he's someone I'll get to in tournaments tonight. He does seem a little bit higher owned than I think he should. But yeah, decent play. Obviously, boom bust, given how scoring dependent he is. But the priorities for Portland, Dame over on FanDuel, Nurk over on DK, and I don't mind Hart because forward's usually a thin position, and he is reasonably priced. Over on the Orlando side, Jonathan Isaac's still out. He should be back soon, though. Chuma Okeke's out, Kevon Harris, and RJ Hampton all out. So this is one of the toughest teams on the slate to really get a good read on. They're on a back-to-back here. I don't mind Wendell Carter on either site. Really not someone I'm rushing to get to. You get that power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which makes him much easier to get to. 6,100 for Fultz on DK is appealing. but I really don't like the 7,600 on FanDuel. And then Monchero's price where he should be, but on a back-to-back at 8K, I don't think I can prioritize him there. So it's just a really deep rotation now that this team's healthy, with Suggs coming back and Isaac coming back soon. Bowles finally over COVID or whatever illness he had. So really no magic I'm rushing to except maybe Fultz over on DK. But that's it for that one. Moving right along, we have the Golden State Warriors at the Phoenix Suns. The Warriors are 11.5-point favorites at home. The main reason for that, we got a lot of injury news over in Phoenix. We have Booker out, Ayton questionable, Craig questionable, Crowder's obviously out, Cam Johnson is out, Chris Paul is out, Cam Payne is out. Man, so the list goes on and on for Phoenix here. Shamet, I believe, is questionable. If he's in, he's going to be a good value play. You see that reflected in the ownership here. North of 20% on both sites. If he's out, I mean, Dwayne Washington is going to be even more popular than he already is. I like Washington as it stands. He's looked pretty decent the past few games. With Booker and others sideline, 4,200 on DK, 4,700 on FanDuel. Someone I'll be getting to. Sarek is okay as a punt, so is Jock Landale, but I really only want either of these front court pieces if Ayton's out of the lineup. So yeah, it's really the guards I'm prioritizing here, mostly Dwayne Washington and Shamet if he's in. I do like Mikal Bridges on both sides. He's getting a lot of ownership though. This is just a very thin rotation for Phoenix tonight. This is a situation where you need to keep an eye on the news. But if Ayton's out, keep an eye at who starts at center. Biombo's not on the injury report. Maybe it's Bismack Biyombo. Maybe it's Jock Landale. Maybe it's Dario Saric. I think whoever starts, you could trust his value. Really not rushing to any of them as things stand with Ayton in. I do think Ayton's an okay play. If this is going to be a competitive game, he's going to have to be heavily involved. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know that it will be, but I really do like Dwayne Washington here regardless. He's shown that he can play in a blowout. Damian Lee is kind of the GPP pivot, lower ownership, not really as talented in terms of fantasy production, but someone I could see getting to a bit. So a lot to like here in Phoenix. There's no one really jumping off the page at me other than Washington, but at the same time, I do like Shamet a ton if he's in. Ayton's fine. Bridges looks good in a thin position. And then Torrey Craig's really inconsistent, but he's someone you could look to there as well. Over on the Golden State side, Curry could be back tonight. He's listed as questionable. They just got Andrew Wiggins back. So this is another situation where you have a team that hasn't been healthy getting healthy. So they're all kind of priced up as though some other starters are out. So they're going to be really tough to get to. So if Steph's in tonight, maybe he's okay here. But there's really just nothing on Golden State I have any interest in. Clay's back. Clay's been back. Wiggins is back. They're all just priced up as though Curry's out. And if Curry's in, it's going to be impossible to play these guys. I mean, we're still seeing DiVincenzo up at 6K. I mean, with Wiggins back, he should be back in that 4K range. So it's just really tough to play any Warriors until their prices come back down. And these rotations settle with this team getting healthy. So moving into the 10:30 window, I believe this is the last game on the slate. We have the Dallas Mavericks at the Los Angeles Clippers. Some key injury news here. Luka is questionable for Dallas. So first and foremost, I mean, if Luka's in, he's obviously a great play. They are calling his injury ankle soreness. So I think they're going to decide whether they want to play him or not sometime during the day. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure he's good to go, but definitely something to keep an eye on. If Luka's in, he's good, obviously. If he's out, we're going to be prioritizing guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway Jr. We've even seen Jaden Hardy have some good games as a punt. Very scoring dependent, very risky play, but I wouldn't mind him there either. They did cut Kemba Walker last week, so he's no longer in the mix here. So it would just make Dinwiddie, Hardaway look excellent. And then Christian Wood. I mean, we already have Kleber out. We already have Finney-Smith out, which has created more usage for Christian Wood. Jason Kidd's finally trusting him enough to give him over 30 minutes on a consistent basis. So Wood is an excellent option on both sites. Really like him a lot here. You're getting power forward and center eligibility. A little bit better if Luke is out. But yeah, I think regardless, you could get to Christian Wood, and obviously if Luke is in, he's good. If he's out, Hardaway and Dinwiddie become priorities. So looking over at the Clippers side of things, Paul George is out tonight. Luke Kennard is out tonight. Brandon Boston back in the G League. The big thing here is Kawhi Leonard. He's finally playing full run of minutes. He's 8,400 on FanDuel, 8,700 on DK. I think with Paul George out of the lineup, he's a bit too cheap. I think on DK he is a bit lower owned than he should be, sub 15%. You're getting him at 24% over on FanDuel. I think that makes sense. Don't mind Zubac here. I think he's a good tournament play. Just be careful. Dallas isn't exactly a big team, and if they choose to go small, that could take Zubac out of the rotation a bit more than he should be, maybe. So certainly something to keep an eye on there. But yeah, Norm Powell looks fine. I don't mind Nicholas Batum. Terrence Mann has been really good lately. He's cheap, both sites, decent guard value option with Paul George out of the lineup. Again, like most shooting guards are, he's very scoring dependent, so kind of a boom bust type play. But if we don't get more value throughout the day, I think he's someone you could take a look at. Excuse me. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on the Clippers here. But Kawhi is going to be a priority for me with Paul George out of the lineup. So just to go over things quickly, I mean, I started building a little bit over on FanDuel. I do like Kawhi. I do like Markkanen. I mean, if Luke is in, he's going to be good. But where's Dwayne Washington? I think Dwayne Washington's someone you could prioritize, even if Shamet plays, because again, we have Booker and Paul out for those Suns. So this is kind of a shell of what I would start with over on FanDuel. Similar situation over on DK. I did start with Oladipo. Just make sure Washington starts. He's kind of, I don't know. He's a bit of a talking point among the industry. I mean, with everyone out, though, he's really tough to get away from. Obviously not the most talented player, but given the opportunity, he's an aggressive shooter. So he's kind of like the Dylan Brooks of Phoenix, certainly more humble, but that type of player, maybe you don't want him on your real basketball team, but he's really good to have in fantasy. So I don't mind Washington. Maybe I throw in Christian Wood here as well as a power forward. Where is he? Something like this as a shell. You still get 7K each. I mean, you could even add Kawhi in there. Feel pretty good about it. Still get 6K. So pretty easy to build tonight for a 7-game slate. We got a lot of good value. We got a lot of good pay-up options. Just sorting by ownership right now. Stewart, Washington, both extremely popular. No surprises there. Over on FanDuel, we're seeing similar situations. Stewart, Washington. I mean, Terrence Mann's a little bit more popular than I would expect, but I don't mind him as a value play. Sorting by OF index, which is just kind of weighing upside over everything else. We have Luka at the top, no surprise there. I mean, if Hero and Bam are both out, Butler's going to become a priority, kind of on the same level of a Kawhi. We're not really seeing Kawhi pop. I'm imagining that's kind of a sample size thing. I think he should be a little bit higher with Paul George out, but again, something to keep an eye on. So once again, my name's Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also subscribe to the channel. Check the links in the description below to become a member of Occupy Fantasy today. And as always, let's have some fun tonight, everyone, and make some money. Take care.